Hopefully you remembered what we covered a few days ago with Microsoft Word, formatting the text, copying, pasting to and from the clipboard, and also tabs, setting the margins, justification left, right, and center. There was one more thing I wanted to cover with regard to cut and paste, and right now I'm in a web page here, and this can be really useful for you, so pay close attention. Oftentimes with websites, you have text or links inside the website that you may want to use. So here on this website we have a link right here, and if you were to take this and highlight all this text, let me show you how that works, and copy it, it goes to the clipboard. I'm going to minimize that and go into Office. And then here in here I'm going to edit and paste. So I'm pasting what's in this clipboard. You'll notice here that the link is there. You can tell because it's of a different color and it's underlined. So if someone were to look at this document or read it, they would be able to click on that link and go to the web page. This may be something you don't want though. If you're creating a document that you're going to print or show to the class on paper, you don't want that to be underlined and of a different color. You want it just to be text. So the way to do that, remember this highlighted text is still in the clipboard right now, but the way to do that is to go to Edit and choose Paste Special. In here you get to choose between HTML and unformatted text. If you do not want the links, or if there's a whole bunch of clutter because of links or other material that may have been on the website that you could interact with, you'd want to choose unformatted text. That's what I'm going to do here. There we go. And notice that the text is no longer highlighted by a different color or underlined. It's just plain old text, and they call that unformatted text. So that's what you'd want to do if you want to bring in some text from a web page. Sometimes you get a lot of ads on a web page that interfere with the text being displayed in a clear way when you bring it into a word processor. You want to paste an unformatted text. Okay, let's get on to different formatting things. What we're going to cover today is formatting a page. Now I know this isn't something that we covered in depth last year, so you're actually going to be learning something new for people who had my class last year. Right here I'm going to go to Format and select Page. This option is also available in Microsoft Word. It looks a little different, but it does basically the same thing. In here there's certain things called headers and footers. A header is a dedicated area of space at the top of the page that allows you to put in like titles, dates, page numbers, and those things get updated from page after page after page. I'm going to show you how that works real quickly. Footers are pretty much the same thing as headers, except they happen at the bottom of the page. So over here I'm choosing headers. I'm going to turn headers on. You get to decide how big you want to make your header and what the spacing's like. Use dynamic spacing. That means it would adjust itself to what you're putting up there. Normally the dynamic spacing for headers doesn't look too good, so it's better just to choose a spacing that works well for you and just stick with it. Okay, auto fit height, you may want to have that checked or not checked depending on what you want to do. So here we go. I'm hitting OK. Now at the top of this page you'll see the header, and in here you could write in something like My Fantasy Report. Okay. Also at the top I'm going to hit Tab, remember the tabs here, and space it out a bit. I'm going to put in a tab right here where I want to have the page number. So I'm going to put in page, space, and in here I'm going to go to Insert and Fields. What I'm choosing here is a page number. So I'm going to go, you'll see in Fields you've got a bunch of choices. I'm going to put in a page number. You could do the same for the time, the date. You can even put in page counts or subject. I'm going to choose page number, obviously. And it automatically puts in a page 1. Now I'm going to highlight some text here that we pasted. Actually, I'm just going to go back into the body text outside of the header now. I'm going to select all, just select all, and then copy that text. I just want to put in enough text that I'm going to roll over into a second page. And go here and edit, paste, 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 paste. All I'm doing is just filling up a bunch of pages with the same page, with the same information. But I'm just doing this to demonstrate what the headers do. Since I set the header when I first started the document, it applies to all pages. And right here, you will see that in the header, the page numbers get updated based on what page I'm on. And it also includes the title, My Fantasy Report, in the upper left-hand corner. You can do the same thing with the date. You can do the same thing in the footer. Oftentimes page numbers are in the footers, not in the headers. That's a choice that you can make. So the footers are pretty much the same as the headers, except again they happen at the bottom of the page. So it's formatting pages and fields. Also, I'm going to show you another way to create another page. Let's say you are creating a document and you don't like the way that the program, the word processor, is breaking the document up into different pages. It breaks it at an awkward point, and that happens a lot actually. In here, you can choose, in all word processors, an insertion point. So I'm going to go to Insert, and I'm going to select Manual Break. And it gives you a choice what kind of break you want. A line break, a column break, or page break. Page break, if you watch right here, will force the page to stop at that point. So you'll see there's a bigger gap underneath the text now, and it moves it into the other page. That can be really useful for making reports where you want to keep, let's say, a table all on the same page, or some artwork and the text associated with that artwork on the same page. That's really, really useful. So you can insert those page breaks, they're called. That works a lot better than hitting Enter or Return until you get the next page. It's cleaner for the program, and it's cleaner for your whole document and using it. So I'm going to close this document in Office, and I'm not going to save it, so I'm discarding the changes. And I'm going to open up a new text document. Now I'm starting off something brand new. In here, you may want to have multiple columns. You may not just want to fill the whole page with one block of text. The reasons for doing this would be if you wanted to insert a photo somewhere, which you could just drag into the document, and have the column off to the left or right of that photo. So, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to Format and choose Columns. In here, you get to choose how many columns you want. By default, that means without making any changes to the word processing document, you have one column. It's that just you fill that one page from the left margin to the right with text. Let's say you want to break it up into two columns. You would select the image here, that little icon with two columns, and it'll show you the width and the spacing and everything. You could adjust this, but typically auto width works out really well. There's a buffer, they call it, between the two columns. That's the space between the two columns, and that's all sort of handled right here on this page. So I'm going to hit OK. And here you'll see that light gray line in the middle. That represents the separation between the two columns. And if I paste my text in there, you'll see that now it's broken up into two columns. And it goes to the bottom of the left column. Then it starts again at the top of the right column. So it really never leaves the page until the right column's filled up to the bottom. And this is where you can put in column breaks too. Insert, manual breaks, and column breaks. So like the page breaks, the column breaks break that column at that point. It's worth playing around with if you like. It's something that you probably won't use much, but the columns can become really useful if you are making a report for your teacher and you want to include an image of something and you don't want the text to look all funky around that image. Now, we have a really cool feature that you can use in all the word processors that I've ever used, and it's the find and replace features. If you take some text and let's say you go to a web page or you get some text from somewhere and you've imported it into a word processor, you can search for certain words by letting the computer do it for you. Sometimes if you have a really big document, it gets tedious to hunt for certain words inside the document. So you can open a document and you could just go down, in this case it's the edit menu, and find and replace. In here you could search for a word. I'm going to put one in. Here we go. Okay. And then hit find. And it will find every instance of that word. Basically the search starts at where the flashing cursor is on the page. So sometimes if the flashing cursor is close to the end of the document or the page, it'll tell you it's finished searching from the cursor's point. Would you like to search the whole document for that word? And if you do, you'd answer yes. So that's what we did here. And you'll see it highlights the word once it finds it so that you can easily spot it. And then if you want to find the next instance, you just hit find all and it'll show you every instance. Now if you wanted to replace that word with another one, let's say you made a mistake, you spelled somebody's name wrong and you repeated that name throughout the whole document, you can go to this find and replace feature and then add or replace and put in the corrected word or name. There we go. And then you can replace one by one, or you can replace all of them at the same time. Be careful. Replacing doesn't automatically match the case. So if it was a word, let's say a name, and it started with a capital in the middle of a sentence, and you wanted to replace it with a different name that also started with a capital, it wouldn't be a big deal. But if it was a word that you capitalized once because it was at the beginning of the sentence, and then there are other instances of that word in the document somewhere in the middle of the sentence, you would want to use the feature called match case. So that way you don't get the word being inappropriately uppercase or lowercase throughout the whole document. So match case and then replace all would be the thing that you'd want to do. And that's the replacing feature. Really, really useful feature. Another really cool tool that you have here is the spelling and grammar check under the Tools menu. If you go to Tools menu, you can continue checking your document for spelling and grammar checks. This can be a tool that you use just to make sure that you got it right. It's not always right. Oftentimes it will give you bad advice. That's why you pay attention to your teacher while they're teaching you spelling and grammar to make sure you get it right. The worst thing you could do is to use the spelling feature in a document and just apply it to everything without checking out each word that it recommends to change. Oftentimes, the word doesn't need to be changed if you are paying attention while you're making the document. The computer doesn't think. It just automatically goes through and runs certain functions on the document to correct it. It's up to you to decide if the computer actually got it right or wrong. This tool is really useful though because it'll flag things that you may not have seen after you wrote the document. Sometimes when you write a document, you automatically correct it in your head as you're reading along, and you may submit a document to the teacher with errors in it. This part of the program, the spelling and grammar check, will go through and spot those for you. It'll make them stand out. Really nice feature. Okay, so I'm just going to close that. You've probably noticed if you've used a word processor, if a word gets really long and is at the end of a line, it'll automatically hyphenate it. And so word processors do that automatically. You do not want to manually hyphenate words typically in a word processor. It'll do it for you. The reason why you don't want to do it manually and actually put in that hyphen is because as you edit it, you may change the spacing on that line, and then suddenly you've got a hyphenated word in the middle of a line. It looks really terrible. Okay, graphics. Let's see. We have multiple columns. If you take a graphic, you can just drop it into a page, and you'll see it creates a whole new page there. take that graphic, copy it, and this is a little quirky in OpenOffice. So I'm going to close that now. Go in here, I've got a flashing cursor, and then paste it, and the graphic will show up in the document like that. So that's a little bit quirky with OpenOffice, and you can, the text, as you will probably notice here, the text will fall either underneath or above the graphic. So in this case, you may want to put in a column break or just space it out with returns. Okay, there is one more thing that I want to cover, and I'm going to close this page, discard changes, open up a new text document, and I'm just going to type something, a nice big word. And then in here I want to save it. File, save, and let's choose save as. Actually, in here you get multiple file types to save it as. OpenOffice documents are known as ODT. I don't know what the D stands for, but it's OpenOffice something text, I'm guessing. That is an OpenOffice file. That is not something that a Microsoft Word document would open up automatically. So you may want, if you were sending a document to somebody with Microsoft Word and you're working in OpenOffice, you'd want to save it in a different format. And there are a ton of different formats that you can use. You'll see that OpenOffice gives you Microsoft Word 97, 2000 XP. That's plain old doc file. Microsoft Word 95, plain old .doc. Word 6, that's plain old .doc. Underneath that you have rich text format. This is an industry agreed upon standard for text documents. So it'll keep a lot of your formatting like tabs, uppercase, lowercase, font size, color, whatever. The rich text file will retain all that. Then there's plain old text. This will throw away all formatting except returns. So everything that you did with the document will look very plain vanilla. Any special spacing you put in, page breaks, whatever, they will not show up in a text document. Another thing that you can save it as in some programs, but it doesn't look like you can do it in this program, you can save them as PDFs, which is a portable document format, which can be really, really interesting. Or, this program allows this, an HTML file. If you're writing a web page with plain old text, you can save it as an HTML file. Typically, word processors aren't too good for that. You'd want a special program, like we used last year, to write the text for your web pages. And that's what HTML stands for, Hypertext Markup Language. That's the language that all web pages, almost all web pages, are created with. So we've covered basic formatting. We've also gone into some of the deeper areas like searching, finding. I think that's pretty much it. Thank you very much, and talk to your teacher if you have any questions. Your exercises should be in the FTP site on the server. Bye-bye.